This is Wednesday now, April the 22nd, and I hope you've been working on your test and keeping up your homework. Remember, turn in your homework before the test as soon as you can, and keep working on this test. Now, we still have 14.1 and 14.2 to do the rest of this week, but we will have Friday off to help you catch up on things. So that's going to try to be that way for the rest of the semester. But we will finish early, I promise you. So this now we start on our last chapter, 14.1 on circles, and it's on page 616. Now this is all a part of what we call conic sections or slices through a cone. So look near the top of page 616 and you can see the conic section or slices through the cone. First the circle, which is parallel to the base of the cone, just a slice through it. The ellipse, which is at an angle, which gives us an elongated circle, the parabola, which is up near the top, and the hyperbola, which needs the two cones, one on its base and one upside down, touching at the points. So that's the four sections we're going to cover first, is the circle, the parabola, the ellipse, and the hyperbola, and then have two more. Now let's look at the standard form for the circle equation, which is nothing more than the right triangle equation. So notice we have a center at HK and any random point along the circle at P, X, Y. Now, the radius squared, which is just the same as the distance squared, is X minus H, and notice that's the bottom part of the dashed triangle, the right triangle, and plus Y minus K squared. That's the upright part of the right triangle. So the right triangle is formed between, the right angle is in between the x-axis part and going up to the y-axis part, up to the point P. And this is again based just on the Pythagorean theorem. Now the first thing we have to do is just learn to recognize the h and the k of the center in the equation, and that it's equal to r squared. So I'm circling that to line it up with the equation. X minus 5 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 7. So since both x minus 5 and the standard form x minus h have a minus, then h is 5, the x part of the center of the circle. But notice now, I have to have minus k to do y minus negative k to get a y plus 1 squared. So that makes negative k equal to 1 because I have to have y minus, and that makes k equal to negative 1. So the center of the circle is easily seen as 5 minus 1, and the way you tell it is on the circle x minus 5. If it's got a minus, you just take the number. If it's got a plus, you take the opposite sign to negative. And r squared is 7, so r is the square root of 7, the radius. Okay? So now, write the standard form equation of the circle centered at negative 3, 2 with a radius of 5. Then graph the equation. Now in this homework and several homeworks to come, we're going to be asked to graph, but I don't think you need graphing paper, so watch how we do this. So we have to match up minus 3, so in order to match that up, we're going to have y plus 3, because I have to have the opposite sign of x plus 3 squared to get it to be minus 3 for the center. So it's a minus negative, and to be plus there. And to be y minus k squared, that's just the way it needs to be, so 2 is the k. So when the y minus is negative, you just take the k as it is. When the y is plus, though, which it is for us, you have to take it as the opposite. Okay, so looking at x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals r squared, or 5 squared, 25, then this is what we do. We take our center at negative 3, 2, and then we just go 5, the radius, to the right, which comes out to 2.2, 2. We go straight up 5 to negative 3, 7. We go straight left 5 to negative 8, 2. And we go straight down 5 to negative 3, and then just draw the best circle you can between those points. Now in example 3, we're going to graph x minus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 9. Now again, notice I have above the 2 an h because it's x minus 2, like the standard form, x minus h. But y plus 4 has to be negative because I need it to be y minus something, so it needs to be y minus a negative 4 to be plus 4. So the center then is 2 negative 4, and the radius is the square root of 9, or 3. So again, I go to the center, 2 negative 4, and I can just graph this out easily by hand. I go 3 right, 3 up, 3 left, and 3 down, and then make my circle from that. Okay? So that's just the standard way to graph it, but I am asking you to graph this in the notes. Okay, now the homework starts on page 618, and here we're just recognizing how to pull off the center and the radius off the standard form equation. So lining up the standard form equation, underneath the circle equation, we have x minus 8 squared plus y plus 14 squared is 9. So again, the 8 is h, but the k has to be negative 14. It has to be minus negative 14 to be plus. So it's 8 comma 14 for the center, and the r is the square root of 9, or 3. Now going on again, this is just noticing how to pull off the numbers. X plus 6 squared, we really need it to be minus negative 6, so it's a negative 6 for h, but 2 is okay for k. So center is negative 6, 2, but r squared is 18, so square root of r, or square root of r squared is square root of 18, which we can factor out as square root of 9 times square root of 2, giving us the perfect square to come out as 3 square roots of 2 for r. Now 6, we write the standard form of each equation, where now we're given the center and the radius, and we're asked to make the equation. Well, when the center is 0, 3, it's just x minus 0 squared, or x squared. But if the y part of the center is negative 3, we have to have it as y minus negative 3, or y plus 3 squared. And then r squared is the square root of 11 squared, which is 11. So our standard form equation is x squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 11. And doing the same thing now for 8. Center is negative 1, 6. So again, we have to do x minus negative 1 squared, or x plus 1 squared. And 6 is positive, so we leave it as y minus 6 squared equals 1 squared, or 1. Our standard form equation is x plus 1 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 1. Now for 10, again doing the same things. C, center of the circle is 0, negative 2. R is 2, so x minus 0 squared just leaves us with x squared. But y part of the center is negative 2, so y minus negative 2 makes it a y plus 2 squared, and 2 squared equals 4. Now these next three we are asked to graph. So when we graph x squared plus y squared, we can notice immediately that there's no h or k, that they're just 0, and that r squared must be 4 squared to make 16, so the radius is 4. So to graph this, we just make 4 marks to the right, left, up, and down, and remember we're 0, 0 with a radius of 4, so we just get our 4 points and make our circle. Pretty easy to do. Now for 14, we have x plus 4 squared plus y squared equals 8. And by now I think you recognize that when you see an x squared or y squared, that part of the center is 0. So here we have x minus a negative 4 squared to make x plus 4 squared, so the center is negative 4, 0. And r squared equals 8, so r is equal to the square root of 8, or square root of 4 times the square root of 2, which is 2 times the square root of 2, or 2.8. Now, let's center the circle at negative 4, 0, and go 2.8 to the right, 2.8 up, 2.8 left, and 2.8 down. That's just a little short of 3 each time. And then we have our circle. Now for 16, the last one to draw is x minus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 36. So I think we can see our h is 1 because it's minus 1. Our k is minus 3 because it's plus 3 squared. So our center is 1 minus 3. And our radius, r squared equals 36, so r equals 6. So again, for this last one to graph, we put our center at 1, negative 3, and we go 6 right, 6 up, 6 left, 6 down, and from that make our circle. Now on 18, 19, and 22, we're going to be completing the square, which we've done before, but not for a while. So remember how we lay this out. We separate the x part and the y part, and we have to fill in the blank. That's completing the square. So we take x squared plus 4x, and to complete the blank, we always take the 4x divided by 2, the 4 over 2, and square it. So 4 over 2 is 2, and that's 2 squared is 4. So notice on the right side we have 21 plus the blank for x, which is 4. Now to make it squared, we take x plus 4 over 2, which is 2 squared, because x plus 2 times x plus 2 gives us our x squared plus 4x plus 4. So when we put it in squared form, we always take what the blank is, 4 over 2, before we square it, or x plus 2 squared, plus y squared equals 21 plus 4, or 25. And so that allows us to pull off the center as negative 2, 0, and the r has to be 5 squared for 25. Now here we have more to work with because we have both x and y to complete the square for, so we'll have a blank for x and a blank for y on both sides. So doing again the same procedure, x squared minus 6x minus 6 over 2 is negative 3, and that's what goes below in the bottom, x minus 3 squared. But we square that, negative 3 squared is 9, so we put the 9 on the blank x on the right of 23, and for the y part, we take y squared plus 10y plus 10 over 2, which is 5, and notice in the bottom it's y plus 5 squared. But for our filling in the blank, that's 5 squared, or 25 in the blank y. So now to get the right side radius squared, we just add 23 plus 9 plus 25, which is 57. So our center now becomes 3, negative 5, and our radius is just the square root of 57. Now this one's a little bit more involved because it has fractions, but we still hold our guns and do the same process for blank x and blank y. So x squared plus 2x plus the 2 over 2 is 1, and 1 squared in the blank x is 1, and notice down below for the answer we have x plus 1 quantity squared. Now for the y part we have y squared minus 9y, but then we have to take minus 9 over 2, which is what we have in the bottom for the answer, y minus 9 half squared. But to fill in the blank, we have to square 9, 81, and square 2, which is 81 over 4. So the right side now becomes our problem, which is the original 7 plus the 1 from completing the x square, and 81 over 4 from completing the y square. Now the way we do this is just 7 plus 1 is 8 plus 81 over 4. So we're going to see how many fourths there are in 8 to get a common denominator. So we get 8 times 4 over 4 plus 81 over 4, which is 32 over 4 plus 81 over 4, which adds up to 113 over 4. So now looking at our equation, we have a center of negative 1, comma positive 9 halves, and our radius is the square root of 113 over 4, which is the square root of 113 on top over 2. Now on these last two, what we do is we have to take a center, this first one's easy, 0, 0, and a point on the circle and find the radius first, because clearly we know the left part of the equation is going to be x squared plus y squared, because there's no hk. So we're going to do a radius squared is 0h minus 4x squared, negative 4 squared would be 16. And then 0 minus negative square root of 3 squared. So we have 4 squared plus square root of 3 squared, which is 16 plus 3 is 19. And r squared equals 19. So we can finish off our equation, x squared plus y squared equals 19. Now for 26, we have a little bit more numbers. H and K for the center of the circle is negative 12, 5. And just a point on the circle itself is negative 7, 2. So the radius is the h minus k, or h minus x, or negative 12 minus the negative 7, which is negative 5, and 5 minus 2, the k minus y, 5 minus 2 squared is 3. So negative 5 squared is 25, plus 3 squared is 9, 25 plus 9 is 34, so r squared is 34, and x minus negative or plus x plus 12 squared plus y minus 5 squared is 34. And that finishes our lesson today for Wednesday. God bless you all and keep safe. Hope you can see a Facebook Live tonight from your church.